and that person shares custody of their kids. Now, I know a lot of people make the argument that homosexual couples are not good parents because a child needs both a mother and a father figure in their life for healthy development and stuff like that. I disagree because there's no research showing that's true, and a lot of people really can't get past that. And if you want to have that debate, that's fine. Just you can't make it based on religious reasons or on anecdotal evidence about single parents. Because most of the evidence that people use to say that gay people shouldn't get married is that, kids that don't have a father are more messed up than kids that don't, or something like that. And in reality, that is single parents, and most of them are impoverished, undereducated, and have, issues themselves. I mean, single parents are a big part of our country today. And not all of them are bad, and not even most of them are bad, but there are issues that go with it. There are issues. I mean, there's a reason having two parents is the norm, and it's not just because of biological reproductive reasons. It's just about the difficulty it takes to raise a child, what with just financial constraints, let alone, emotional constraints like going to, baseball games or art shows or ballet recitals or what have you. But there's no research out there today that says that homosexual couples, two parents, are detrimental to children. There's no research showing that. And on top of that, if you, like me, support government being less involved in your life, if you think that government goes too far and passes laws that they have no right to pass, then you can't also make the argument that gay people shouldn't get married, because it stems from the same logic as why government should be smaller. Now, bear with me. All rights that we have as human beings stem from our right to life. All of your rights come from your right to live. And that's because, as Americans, for example, we believe that you have the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, freedom of speech and religion, freedom from searches and seizures, Second Amendment rights to protect yourself from your government and from criminals, which can be synonymous. And all of these rights, the right to your property, the right to your happiness, stem from your right to live, the right that your life is your own. So the idea that government can come in and say, no, you cannot enter into a voluntary contract with another person, which is what marriage is in terms of government. The idea that government can get involved in that violates certain people's rights to life, because it says that you don't have that right in your life. Government does, and they grant it to you as a privilege. Getting married is not a privilege. It is a right. Whether or not you want to argue about your church, that's a whole nother matter. But the fact is that in terms of government, these laws are not founded in the Constitution. They're not founded in morality. A lot of people say it's morality, and it's not. Morality is about respecting another human being's right to life. That's just the way it is. And changing that or altering it to somehow justify laws against what somebody does with their body, with their property, violates all other notions that government is too big or government is involved in your life too much. So if you support smaller government, you have to also support gay marriage. And I don't mean legalization of gay marriage. I mean getting government out of the business of telling people who can and cannot sign a contract with one another. Now, the only reason that government today technically gets involved in marriage is disputes with ownership from divorce, custody from divorce, and how you file your taxes, and other property-related things like who owns what in a relationship. And as a small government person, the idea to me that the government tells me who I can and cannot share my stuff with is a violation of my right to life. If I decide that I fall in love with a person and I want to own half their things and they own half of mine, I want to file my taxes jointly with this person. I want this person to be in charge of my health if I can't handle it myself. I want this person to raise my kids, take care of my dog. Then that's my choice. And government has no business getting involved in that because government does not know what's best for me better than I do. Only I can determine what's best for me. There is no higher value than the judgment of my own mind when it comes to my life. It's mine. And it's especially hypocritical and horrible when you look at why government got involved in marriage in the first place. Government got involved in marriage to prevent interracial couples from getting married in the South. States passed laws preventing couples that were interracial from getting married. So the federal government had to step in and say, no, you can't do that. And as such, now people are saying, well, these laws don't say anything about gay couples, so clearly they don't have the right to get married. And that's not the case at all. And anybody making that case is not being logical. Now, if you want to argue about, what your religion says or what God says, it's a whole other matter. You can say that God doesn't like homosexuality, but it does not necessarily mean you think government should be involved in it. As a Christian, you can say gay marriage is wrong. But as a conservative and as somebody who values your freedom, your right to life, you should also understand that government has no right to tell somebody who they can and cannot marry. It's a voluntary contract. It's no different than if government got involved in who you sell your guns to, who you rent your apartment from or your house from, who you buy your dog from, what car you buy at the dealership. It's the same thing. Do you want government to start telling you what you have to buy at the grocery store? I mean, by the same logic, government can step in and say, oh, you are not able to voluntarily buy this much red meat because we say it's bad for you. It's the same logic. They stem from the same principle that government somehow has a right to tell you what you can and cannot do in the most basic functions of your life, the most basic rights that you have. It's the same reason that suicide is illegal. Now think about that for a second. It is illegal for you to take your own life. By what right can the government say you're not allowed to take your own life? If it's your life, if you own it, then how can government tell you that you cannot end it if you choose to? Well, the answer is if you own your life, then they can't tell you that. But in our society, we have developed this gray area that allows government to tell you what you can and cannot do with the things you own. And that's a big, big thing that needs to stop, especially among small government people. It's something that you need to try and convince people of and show them. Most conservatives, if you talk to them, they'll tell you it's wrong in the eyes of God, but government needs to back the hell off. Only a small percentage of people actually believe that gays shouldn't be able to get a marriage license. And rightly so, because it makes no sense, as I've explained. But these things aren't going to change unless you win the argument. And that comes down to having this conversation with people who are taking one stance or another. I think that's incredibly important, and I think it's something that we should all be looking into as Americans to try and help and make it happen. More after the break. All right. So one of the big names in news this week has been Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Now, for those of you who are regular listeners, you know I'm a big fan of Rand Paul. I think he's probably the best, if not the second best or third best nomination for president in 2016. Rand Paul hasn't been in Congress very long, but he supports freedom in more mainstream ways than his father did. But more importantly than that, he went to Washington and has fought tooth and nail for basic liberties and rights. And chief among those this week has been the NSA lawsuit. He filed a lawsuit today against the Obama administration and top NSA officials for their spying program. Now, it's a class action lawsuit that millions of Americans should sign up for. If you haven't signed up for it, Google it. NSA class action lawsuit, Rand Paul class action lawsuit, and sign up. Sign on to the lawsuit if you can. Because if you have a cell phone, if you use the internet, which you do if you listen to this show, then the NSA has spied on your records. The NSA is spying on you, and they don't have any justification for it. Now, Edward Snowden revealed that the NSA has been gathering information on nearly every phone call made in the United States since 2006. That's a big deal. Every phone call you make, who you're making it to, when you made it, for how long, where you were when you made that call. Why does the government need that information? Now, a lot of hawkish Republicans and people who buy into this whole terror thing a bit too much, in my opinion, say that, it's to stop terrorists and this is the best way to find terrorists because they can trace these records on, people that are suspected of terrorism. Well, let me ask you this. Why can't they just get warrants for individuals suspected of terrorism? Why do they need sweeping collection of data instead of just collecting it on the people that are suspected of doing wrong? Why is every American treated like a criminal? Now, this is a lot different than working with a police officer who's trying to see if you've done a crime. And I'm not saying that, this is one of those situations where